Welcome to Heartspeak Podcast, episode 57. Don't believe everything you think. Great title, eh? I took it from someone else, but it just fitted in so clearly with what I was thinking about sharing with you on this podcast. Now, be honest, I can't be the only person who spends quite a lot of time thinking. Yes, I have a lot of Gemini in my chart and I do like thinking. I remember as a child thinking, I wish everybody would just go home after a party so I could spend time thinking. I'd even spend time sitting on a toilet thinking, good, my own space to think. But thinking is a process we all do, whether you admit to doing it as much as I do. And of course, thinking can become worrying. It can become a meditative process. But today we are bombarded with information. We're bombarded with a thinking process. And it really makes me think, who's doing the thinking? What is it that is inspiring us? If thinking is a way in which we create our reality out of our thinking, who's doing the thinking? Who's making that decision of what will come through our consciousness and come into creation? Now, what's interesting is that it's very true to be said that probably only 5% of our consciousness or our thinking is conscious. 95% is unconscious. I'm going to come back to that. But some people say only 1% of our thinking is conscious and 99% is unconscious. So it makes us even more aware that if we are being thought, or our consciousness or that which we focus on is coming from the unconscious, what's driving the bus? What is coming through me? What is it that I am bringing into my consciousness to make decisions? How to make decisions? What am I basing my awareness on? And that's really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the thinking, our beliefs, how we create those beliefs, and are we perhaps out of touch with our thinking more so than we were previously? I was mulling over this idea. I tried not to talk about the word thinking. And I was remembering times where I might ask advice of a friend about something. And I would listen to their advice, and I may or may not go along with it, but it was giving me choice. And if they said something that annoyed me, I probably knew that they were talking the truth, even though I didn't want to accept it. Damn it, our friends always tell us the truth. Not always. True friends always tell us the truth. But when it became authority figures who were giving me information, I might have given them a little bit more credence without those personal filters. If it came from religion or politics or teachers or parents, whoever it is that we consider as an authority figure, we may well say, well, they're right because they're the authority in this subject. And I hope that each of you listening has the ability to still have filters and say that may be their perspective on this. It may be their way of looking at something, but I may see it from a different place, and it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just is we're looking at it from a different place. And then now we have an even more abstract, unknown authority. We might call it Google or a search engine, or it may be news. We used to think that the media were giving you the true information, and we probably are aware that isn't so true nowadays. And with so much filtering going on in different organizations who believe that they know what is right for us, it's going to be even harder for us to really know the truth. What is the truth according to me? And truly, that has to come from, what do I already know inside me? What resonates with me? What is on the same frequency of me? And in other words, when we are listening to someone else's truth, all we're doing is seeing how much it resonates with us. And if it resonates, we go, ah, that's true. And what I want you to understand, and that's why I'm talking about don't believe all everything you think, many a time we are just looking at a resonance, a synchronicity to our own thinking. But if our own thinking is already distorted, if our own thinking is already wounded, then when we do hear something that resonates, it may just be adding to our woundedness. It may not actually allow us to evolve. It may not allow us to come closer to our wholeness. It may just stagnate us. And that's, again, something I want to talk about. And before I forget this, I just wonder what happens when we are looking at social media. I watch people scroll through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and they're looking at pictures of other people or what people are doing, or maybe it's just pretty pictures. And I think, what's that doing to us? What are we absorbing from that scrolling of probably unknown people a lot of the time, or unknown events? It's not necessarily resonating with us and saying, oh, look, that person's eating ice cream. Maybe it does say, I would love to eat ice cream. But sometimes we just see a face of someone. What does that do for us? I don't think there's enough research going on to see how we are influenced by pictures that perhaps have very little relevance to us in our daily lives, or we think so. So literally this fast scrolling, what do we take in? What's we really absorbing? And are we only absorbing things that really, again, resonate with us? So if we don't think we're very pretty and we see a picture of someone who's very pretty, are we saying to ourselves, oh, damn it, they're prettier than we are. Like I told you, they're a star. They've got all these followers. They've got all these friends. It must be my problem. How is it affecting our thinking and our consciousness? And more importantly, our unconsciousness. How are we picking up information, and how is it changing us? So if you look at the work of Candace Pert, and many of you know of her work, she looked at endorphins and then neuropeptides, and the understanding that every time we have an emotion, our whole body releases these tiny little proteins, these peptides. And those little peptides are like little messengers, each of them with a very specific message, which then fits into the cell membrane to affect that cell to act in a certain way. So in very simple terms, it may be that we smell some food, we like the smell of that food, our body is already getting ready to eating that food. And as we know, Pavlov's dogs, you don't even have to have the food, I can just talk about it. So I could talk about this succulent lemon that I'm sucking on, and can you taste the juice of that lemon? And already your glands will start to produce saliva in response to my instructions about a lemon in your mouth. So each memory has a little peptide, and each emotion has a little peptide. And each memory can be made up of many, many emotions, so that it can produce so much in our body without us actually consciously knowing this is going on. So if you walk into a room and there's a lot of people, and when you were 5 years old, you walked into a room where there were lots of people, and you felt embarrassed because you weren't wearing the right clothes, or you didn't know anybody, then immediately all that fear, that anxiety, that shame will produce little peptides that will set your body into motion, and maybe you'll start to feel sick or nervous or shake, or just want to get away from the situation. And what we know is all of that happens at least a third of a second before the brain is even conscious of what's going on. And this comes primarily through the solar plexus, because this is a place where we pick up these subtle energies, these unknown energies, the psychic energies, sixth sense. And the problem with the solar plexus, and what we've found out, that it really doesn't have many filters. It doesn't have an intelligence. So if, as I say, you have a memory, It might be a memory of someone, like, excuse me if I use the word George. If I say, hello, my name's George, and you've had a bad experience with a George, your body will already be going into motion of how to protect yourself against this George, even though it's a different George. And you might say, well, that's silly. No, it isn't. This is the mass of memory that your solar plexus has absorbed and your brain now holds on to. And it's all in a sense of not only receiving information, but also, how do I keep myself safe? How do I know what to do in a situation? So when we are talking about thinking, our thinking is deeply laden with past experience, past emotions, and beliefs that we've created in order to keep ourselves safe or keep ourselves on top of everything. And we don't always take that knowledge and say to ourselves, okay, you had a bad experience with someone called George in the past. Isn't it about time you got over this thing about Georges? And that's when you take information and you move it into your heart and you say, what's the most loving thing I can do in this moment? And you take it to your third eye and you say, what's the wisest thing I can do in this moment? But most of the time we don't do that. So we just continue to let the solar plexus drive the bus without actually understanding what's going on. Now I'm going to come back to those chakras, but I just want to start the ball rolling. Is like, what are your thinkings? Are your thinkings real? Don't believe what you are thinking, or don't believe you're thinking. In other words, where's it coming from? And maybe it's a delusion, an illusion. Maybe it's been put into your mind by someone else. Again, you may think of a story that you had from childhood, and you ask your siblings, do you remember that event when la 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 happened? And they go, I don't remember when that happened. That didn't happen. And you went, yes, we were all down by the seaside and it happened. And they go, I don't remember. Now, is it your memory that's at fault, or theirs? Or where did you plant a memory? Or is it only that you saw a picture of yourself at the seaside and you came to a conclusion that that's what must have gone on there? Pictures have a very powerful way of filling in the gaps. In other words, you may know that our eyes do not see the perfect picture of something. It sees parts of an object, and then our memory fills in the rest. And however, if that memory is already distorted, then we're going to see the world in that distorted way. And I saw that a lot when I was working with psychics. I was brought up with psychics, as many of you know. And I met some wonderful psychics. All of them were wonderful. But if they did not understand their own inner workings, their own inner work, and had never looked at their memories, it was very easy for them to then project on everybody they met psychically their own woundedness or their own perception of life. They filled in the gaps. So if they saw something in you, they may not understand the whole, but they filled it in with their memory. Make sense? How many times was I told, oh, you're going to have a baby? And I had to kind of say, actually, no, I'm just about to publish a book, which was my baby. But it didn't mean they were wrong, but they filled it in from their perception, not from the whole. And we do that all the time. So what is it we need to understand about thinking? If you took that one step further, Bruce Lipton talks about how those little neuropeptides fit into a lock that's on the cell membrane, so it acts as a key going into the lock. And when that interaction takes place, there's a cascade of events that leads to changes in the genes, or let's say a gene may well become exposed because of that cascade. In other words, how we react and how our genes may be expressed are affected by this lock and key effect, which comes from what we're already thinking. So as Bruce Lipton says, if you want to change your genetic expression, you have to change your thinking, your perception of life, your beliefs. And it's not enough just to think happy thoughts. oh, well, I'm just going to think happy thoughts, because what you're really doing is also attracting the unhappy thoughts. You're attracting into your mind there are unhappy thoughts, and therefore I'm only going to think happy thoughts. It doesn't work. Positive thinking doesn't work in that way. And therefore setting an intention, I'm only going to be positive, I'm going to be positive, usually ends up with a little part of you going, well, I don't feel positive. It's not how I want to feel. So the only way, as Einstein says, you can't fix the problem at the level it was created, so you can't fix your thinking at the level of thinking. Intentions, prayers, trying, doesn't work. You have to change your whole outcome there, how you wish to feel in a new situation. And it's not just feeling it as in, oh, I'm very happy. It's literally engaging. It's having a relationship with that new feeling. So it's if when you see the sunrise, your whole body is part of that sunrise. Wow, this is a sunrise. Not, oh, I see the sunrise, or I'm really happy the sun is rising. You literally have to wake up the part of you that is the sunrise. That's quite big. That's called alchemy. We feel that which we wish to become, and we know we've become it because we're feeling it. Aha! That's a big one. So if you wish to be in a relationship, you want to imagine already that you're in that relationship, and how are you going to feel in that relationship. Again, don't tell yourself, oh, I'm happy. You have to feel that way. And when you feel that way, you're already sending out a magnetic signal that attracts into your life that which you feel. If you want to feel if you want to create a change, become the change. Okay? Okay, you're all saying to me. So now let's just go a little deeper as to how this thinking is created. And I'm bringing into mind now the chakra system, because I'm so familiar with that, and I feel that that will help us to really cement what we're talking about here. So when I'm looking at our thinking, I sense it often comes more from what I call our masculine chakras than our feminine chakras. And the masculine chakras are the base chakra, the solar plexus, the throat chakra, and the star child chakra, the one above your head. The feminine chakras are more likely, because they're magnetic, to be true to yourself. The masculine chakras are more related to how you are existing in the outer world. How do we fit in? And I believe a lot of our so-called consciousness is our relationship to the outside world, rather than our relationship to our inner world, our true inner world, our soul, our heart. So if we go to the base chakra became the chakra of connection, of belonging, of security. I've spoken before about how we got cut off from the root chakra beneath our feet, 9 feet beneath our feet, or 3 meters beneath our feet. And when we used to be rooted into Mother Earth, we knew who we were as a unique individual. We were like a tree in a forest, maybe many, many different types of trees in this forest, but we were all tapped in to the same source of creative energy, the heart of the Great Mother, and the same source of sun or light. You could say Father Sky, Mother Earth, if you wish. But once we got cut off from the going down, killing the dragon, killing the serpent, cut off from the root chakra, and now the base chakra is all to do with our security. This is where Kundalini lives, but she's asleep because she got cut off from the root chakra. The base chakra, base of our spine, became the source of how do I fit in? And that sense of fitting in is very tribal, and it's full of rules. These are the rules you need to follow in order to fit into this family, culture, religion, race, whatever you want. So when we're born, without even knowing it, we bounce into this world, and suddenly someone gives us the rule book. Here you go, here's the rules. If you want to fit in. And if you don't fit in, then there are consequences. And they're usually connected to fear. Fear of loneliness, rejection, abandonment, isolation. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about there. If I don't follow the rules, I don't fit in. And if I don't fit in, I don't exist almost. So we follow the rules. Now, how do you know that this thinking is coming from the base chakra? It's full of should, must, ought, duty, responsibility. In other words, you living out of your own rules, following your own crown chakra energy, which is its partner. The masculine is the base chakra, the crown chakra is the feminine. You following your own direction is not acceptable if you're going to fit in. So you being a unique individual that knows where you're going and has your own spiritual connection can be, you may have been told that to have that is not okay. You have to swim in the same direction as everybody else. You have to fit in. You have to follow the rules. And we cannot abide anybody stepping out of that, because if you step out, you threaten everybody else. So maybe you've been in that situation. Maybe you've brought some new ideas to your family, or you brought it to your work and you went, guess what I found out? Or guess who I'm going to be? And everybody went, shh, we don't talk about this. Or don't show off. Or who do you think you are? You'll never survive without us. So we pull ourselves back in and we end up living from a place of fear, not because necessarily that we have a fear of abandonment, but that anxiety, that fear that we may feel is like we shut down our energy field. In other words, the same energy of fear is the same energy of excitement. So sometimes when I meet people who are anxious and fearful, it's because they're trying to suppress a natural excitement to expand. Does that make sense? So we've been told, well, it must be because you're scared of doing that. No, maybe what you're scared of is your excitement. You're wanting to move out, and everybody's trying to suppress that. So first step, if your thinking is full of shoulds and musts and oughts, root yourself into Mother Earth, connect to her creative energy, and tell yourself, I am a unique individual that always belongs to Mother Earth. I do not need to live by other people's rules as far as finding my own sense of connection. I am already connected. Now, that doesn't mean you go off and become a rebel just because you can. Because once you're connected, you come into this other energy that says, now I'm connected to everybody. What I do to somebody else, I do it to myself. So some part of fitting into those rules keeps us from really connecting deeply to other people. If a family is held together through fear, or keep it in the family, or don't let anybody know these ideas outside the family, that is not a family. A true family is one where everybody can live their life fully as they are, and yet still honor and respect other people. Make sense? Move up to the solar plexus. The solar plexus is a huge cacophony of fears and anxieties. This is where shame, guilt, victimhood, all of those wonderful things, anger, judgment sit. This is where we desire through our solar plexus to be liked. Just like me, just approve of me, just tell me I'm okay. And if we didn't have that in our childhood, that type of encouragement and celebration, it's very easy for us to get knocked off our center. And then our whole life, and this is where we use that solar plexus, is using it as a satellite dish to read, what do I need to be in order to be liked? And so our sense of using our solar plexus to see how we relate to the outer world is now based purely on gaining approval, pleasing other people, avoiding criticism, anything but being hurt. And so again, this idea of protection from our solar plexus can literally overcome our logical thinking that says, hey, this place is not as bad as you think. You're actually overreacting from a previous or a memory from childhood or even a past life. So the fear we get in our solar plexus is often this false expectations of an altered reality, where we're way outside the reality of what's going on. And we're allowing our solar plexus to react to situations that really aren't there. That's why we really have to get a handle on that. Because if at least 95% of our thinking is unconscious, a lot of that's coming from the solar plexus. A lot of it is about, how do I fit in? How am I liked? I don't even care if you love me. I want to avoid criticism. I want to avoid judgment. I want to avoid being shamed. I'll do anything. We become the pleaser. We become maybe the aggressor. Stay away from me. You can't, you don't know what's right for me, whatever it is. We fight everybody. So how do we get past that? We own our feelings. I've got to say, write them down, own them. What is it you're feeling in that moment? And are they your feelings? Because that's the problem with the solar plexus. A lot of the time, we're picking up on other people's feelings. And now we're feeling them. We go, that's a bad person. And it's like, no, that's their energy. It's not yours. So we have to learn how to create healthy emotional boundaries when we can decide what is me and what is someone else. And before I finish on this solar plexus magic, I can't be the only person. Okay, I have Virgo as my ascendant, and I'm talking to others of you who have Virgo in your astrology charts. But that when something happens that I feel I've made a mistake, I think about how can I change that mistake? Because heaven forbid that I might have to feel bad about myself. I have to not approve of myself. And so that sensitivity to criticism will do anything to change what has just happened. Do you ever recognize this in you? So what happens is I take the feeling of failure, being imperfect through my solar plexus, then take it up to my head. And Virgo, interestingly, is ruled by Mercury, which is actually the ruler of Gemini, which is the messenger or the thinker. And so Virgo, dear Virgo, has become more of a mental construct than a body-centered intuitive. And so my head works overtime. If only I hadn't done that. What if I'd done that? I wish this event had never happened. I wish that person had not spoken to me. How can I wind back the clock? And all the time, I'm overthinking this problem over and over and over and over and over. Do you recognize this? And what I'm really trying to do is erase it so I can go back and feel better about what just happened. But ultimately, what is happening is I am thinking, you idiot, you just did that. Goodness, why did you do that? You are such an idiot. You are so bad at this. And I am beating up on myself. I am being as mean to myself as I can be. Yes, do some of you recognize that? This is bad thinking. This is not useful thinking. This is how to go round and round in circles, and none of it's good. So sometimes I say to myself, just stop thinking altogether, because nothing that's going through my head is good. None of my thinking is constructive. None of my thinking is helpful. So I put on music and I dance, or I go and lose myself in a good book that isn't escaping, but it's taking my thinking from a place that is completely not valid, not helpful, to a non-place of thinking, because I have to accept that what's happened has happened. And the next step for me is, can I love the unlovable part of myself that has just made that so-called mistake? And I need to hug that part of myself to say, okay, it happened. I can apologize for what I did, but it's not always about being sorry or apologizing to other people. It's apologizing to ourselves for how we treat ourselves. We don't always treat ourselves well. So if you understand what I'm saying, try not to think yourself out of a box. You cannot do it. Stop thinking, do something else, come back to it later and give yourself a hug. And then we go to the throat chakra, the dear throat chakra. Or maybe I just come to the heart chakra, which is corresponding to the solar plexus, the feminine. This is about love. This is about connection. But it's not about, oh, I just love you. It's about truly unconditional love, where there's no conditions on you to be a certain way, there's no conditions on them. And if there are no expectations either way, how do we live with each other? It doesn't mean that everything you do I'm fine with. It says, I love you so much, I'm actually not going to be around you because I don't like your behavior. That isn't judgment, that's honesty. It's saying, you and I are separate. What you do, what I do are separate. But I choose to not allow those conditions of my lovingness to affect my decisions of what's good for me. This is time to be honest with yourself, respectful of yourself. And then we get to the throat chakra. Throat chakra is the place of thinking. So whereas the solar plexus was so much about emotions, it's all about thinking up here. What am I thinking? What's going on? What do I need to think? And this can be like a strangulation. I think there's a lot of about being intelligent through the throat chakra. I'm more intelligent than you. I know more. I'm more aware than you are. And we forget that the throat chakra really is the place of transformation. So it's almost like the only thing you know through the throat chakra is that you need to change. But that isn't the way it often comes across. It's almost like my information is more important than yours. My intelligence is more important than yours. And we know we're stuck in that throat chakra when we keep making excuses about changing or ask lots of questions. And we're in a civilization of asking lots of questions. Hey, let me Google that. Let me find information. But again, it's only to really almost allow us not to take responsibility for our own decisions. So throat chakra can actually get us away from changing or making decisions. We become a victim to our choices. Oh, I don't want to get it wrong. But there is no wrong. There's just change. It's like the breath. Breathe in, breathe out, all through the throat chakra. You can't get it wrong. It's not going to allow you, but not changing and not shifting can cause huge issues at the throat chakra. Its correspondence is the sacral chakra, the place of transformation, plus relationships. What needs to change? And sometimes chaos has to happen. Sometimes we have to go, oh, I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. Oh no, help me. Because only when we're confused are we ready to let go of what we thought we knew was true and move into mystery. Follow our heart into mystery. So third eye, just to say, is the balance of those two. I'm hoping that I've helped you to look at, what am I thinking? Step back. Where is my thinking keeping me separate? Because in Heart Speak, we're talking about how do I connect more fully to who I am? How do I connect to my truth? And that type of thinking, that type of knowing doesn't come from the brain. It comes from the intuition. It comes from that friend called the intuition, that love affair you have with yourself when you go, I just know this isn't right. No judgment, third eye, real clear. I know this is not the most loving thing. I know this is the most loving thing. I want to say that knowing is not the same as thinking. That knowing is a sense that you will follow it whatever happens, and recognize that your thinking is already distorted by layers and layers of not only your so-called thinking and memories, but by generations, ancestral generations, lifetimes. As I mentioned in a previous podcast, memories create time. Time, temporally induced mind experiment, is being held together by our memories. Go back to those memories. Take what is valuable. Bring into your heart the part of you that you met in that memory and let go of the rest. Trust the expansion that is happening now on this planet to move beyond limiting thinking. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful few weeks moving into this new space. Follow your heart, know what is right, let go of your thinking, and trust the joy that awaits you. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Heart Speak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Remember to check out other episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. And do share with friends, family, and colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of Heart Speak.